All right, YouTube, we got the death of college football in the Northeast. As y'all know, Northeast, very dear to my heart, from Jersey. So let's go check it out. This is an interesting video. Actually, someone sent it to me. So if y'all got any videos you want me to react to, definitely send them in.
Look at this map of the United States. These are all the college football programs competing at the highest level of the NCAA, the Football Bowl subdivision. Okay. There's something off about it, though.
Look at just how many schools are in this area. I've always said that certain states, I feel like you just have a way better chance if you're in high school of getting recruited by them, just because the local schools around you
the Football Bowl
right there.
Subdivision. There's
like
something
Texas.
off about it, though.
Look how many schools are in Texas.
As we all know, college football is a cornerstone of American sports culture. Entire towns rally behind their teams. Saturday games draw tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people.
I was about to say, there we go, baby. The big house go blue. I ain't gonna lie, to Penn State Stadium, a little bit louder. That's the only one I've been to that's louder. I know the SEC schools like LSU, Texas A&M. Low-key, the Texas A&M this year, it was the for the Texas game. Yo, during the intro, that shit was rocking.
And the traditions are practically sacred. But this level of commitment isn't consistent in every corner of the country.
I could agree with that.
This is the Northeast, a region with one of the largest populations in the United States.
It's definitely hella people up here.
It's also where gridiron football first took root, led by none other than collegiate institutions. Yet, as we can see in this map, there's a scarcity of top-level football.
That is facts, bro. It's not a lot of FBS schools in Jersey. Like, even in New York and like Eastern Pennsylvania, like there's not really that like in Florida. Say you're like South Florida, you have FAU, FIU. I guess USF's in Tampa, but you got kind of a few schools. You're in Texas, you got like 4 schools in like this little area right here. You're in Jersey, New York. Hey, it is not a lot at all. Heike, what school? Wait, what school is this? Because this is FBS. So this is Syracuse, I think. This is Buffalo. Who's this?
Well, when you consider how many people are living here,
I'm tripping.
Along with the sport's rich history in this region.
Because this is Rutgers, that was Temple
here don't
to the
sell
left.
Out like others. Most rivalries aren't commanding national attention, and the sport is far from a cultural phenomenon, at least at a collegiate level. The question is, why? It's certainly not for a lack of people or history. Sure, there are some notable programs and marquee games, but for some reason, college football is seemingly put on the back.
Whoa.
There are some notable programs and marquee games, but for some reason, college football.
Yo. Y'all don't ever wear colored socks and white tight. Oh, that's such a nasty look, nasty drip right here. Don't do this. This is sin. I just had to get that out of the way.
Football is seemingly put on the back burner here, and that likely won't change anytime soon. To understand college football's relative absence in the Northeast, we need to look back at its origins and the role it played in this very region.
I've actually been in this stadium before.
The Northeast, we need
back
to look back at its origins and the role it played in.
It's back when I played receiver. Ain't gonna lie, I was cooking up, but that's a cool stadium, just like really old.
It's very region.
Looked like when football first started, they played in this. Ain't have no updates since.
Over a century ago, football was a Northeast-dominated sport. It took on many variations and eventually evolved into the game we know today. But thanks to the colonial colleges who regularly organized games between themselves, private universities like Harvard, Yale, and Princeton popularized the game in America. In fact, if you look up the national champions from over 100 years ago, you'd consistently find an Ivy League school.
It's always funny when like they be jacking these people be like jacking these records. It's like, gang, there were like maybe 10 schools in the entire country. Like if you look at some of the schools they played, it would be like something the deaf and blind. Like it was definitely some crazy opponents they used to play against.
These institutions were and still are culturally elite colleges. So football here wasn't just a rough and
been to the Yale Bowl too. They wasn't really messing with the boy, but it's all good.
It was a reflection of prestige
no
played by those who came from the country's most influential families. But despite being instrumental in the sport's development, these schools represented a relatively small portion of the population, all while having a strong barrier of entry. Their exclusivity, both in admissions and athletics, made it difficult for the broader public to connect to their football programs. This stands in stark contrast to what we know college football to be today.
There goes Davis! Oh my God!
That play was crazy.
During this time, however,
still remember watching
education in America
live.
was changing behind the scenes, and this is all thanks to the Morrill Land Grant Act. For context, 1862 saw the Morrill Act introduced, which granted federal land to states for the purpose of establishing public universities. These institutions were tasked with providing accessible and practical education to the masses, particularly in agriculture, engineering, and military science. So over time, when new states joined the Union, whether during the post-Civil War era or through westward expansion, land-grant universities immediately became central to their identity, since these institutions were often established shortly after statehood. This meant that those living in newly formed states had an outlet for their state pride. By the late 19th century, many of these land-grant schools had developed football programs that further amplified this state pride. Suddenly, you mix in some marching bands, traditions, and weekly on-field battles between schools from other states. These institutions would go on to symbolize the shared identity of its residents, with football being the primary outlet. Institutions would go on to symbolize the shared identity of its residents.
Just think, like, they were really playing football like this back in the day. No face mask, no padding in the helmet, just straight leather on top of your head. Oh, I know all their brains are gone.
These schools were accessible, but not as accessible as buying tickets through SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video.
W plug.
Rookie basketball looking for something to make things
plug,
even better if it's your work out of buying tickets. Just look for the green dots. 10 to your fun night out, % discount. Utilizing football, easy as that. Now, back to the video. So with many states utilizing football in schools as a way to take advantage of its population's patriotism, it's worth noting that the Northeast, with its already established elite schools, didn't reap the rewards from the Morrill Act in the same way. While land-grant universities wriggled their way into the region, they were often overshadowed by a dense network of private institutions, which made it difficult to rapidly spread school pride to residents in the area. Meanwhile, in regions like the Midwest and the South, public universities were relatively free to carve out their identities without any competition. Plus, the fragmented nature of higher education in the Northeast also played a significant.
That is facts. There are like hella just schools, but like most of these I don't think got football. But yeah, like you got Albany, Buffalo, Stony Brook, I guess Cornell. Yeah, those are the D1 schools, but yeah, it was real spread apart and
role. Many public universities in the region developed as part of sprawling state systems, with multiple campuses serving different areas. For instance, the State University of New York is made up of over 60 institutions. This makes it challenging for any one campus to dominate any particular region's sports culture. Lacking a single home base contrasts sharply with other state schools that primarily had one campus to take in their vast network of students and alumni. And to make matters even worse for college football in this area, the elite universities that once dominated the sport eventually shifted their focus away from athletics. Prioritizing academics above all else, these high-end institutions chose not to compete with the rising power of large state universities that built their identities around athletic excellence.
High-key, funny story. Not really funny story, but when I was in high school, as y'all know, I was a preferred walk-on to Michigan, but a lot of the schools I was talking to were in the Ivy League. The biggest thing that turned me off was the fact they couldn't play for the playoffs. It's like, yo, like, how does every other sport able to play in the like the basketball is able to play in the tournament, wrestling, soccer, softball, lacrosse, they can all play in the tournament, but like football can't play for a championship. So that turned me off from it. I think now they can play in the championship, or they just like got that passed. But yeah, no, that was one of them things, bro. I was like, I love football. I'm like very serious about it. I don't feel like it's the same level of commitment from the schools.
But wait. Just because college football grew beyond the region in which it was developed, that doesn't mean that football as a whole is disregarded here. After all, there are well over 50 million people living in this corner of the country, plenty of whom are avid football fans. We love football up here for sure. In fact, this population density is a significant reason why collegiate football is pushed to the wayside here. Unlike the sprawling towns and relatively less populated areas like the Rust Belt, the South, the Midwest, and beyond, the Northeast is often defined by the cluster of its major cities. For example, Boston's storied legacy with the Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, and later the Patriots has long made pro teams the heartbeat of its sports culture. And in New York, the sheer number of franchises across every major league offers fans an abundance of options. This pattern extends across the region. Throughout this corridor, nearly every major city boasts representation in all 4 major sports leagues.
That's super facts. There are a lot of, like in Utah, it is the Utah Jazz, and that is like the only professional sports team. Everything else is straight college, all college. I didn't even realize how many like just teams are in this area. God damn.
Many of these cities were among the first to host pro teams during the formative years of these leagues, which gave fans a reliable, high-level product that grew alongside the leagues themselves. As professional sports gained national prominence, the loyalty these franchises received cemented them as the primary focus of the region's.
It's actually super funny in Jersey, like kind of there's like a line almost of like demarcation, like somewhere around here of if you're listening to like, North Jersey, New York radio, you're fucking with New York teams, or if you're down here, it's like, yo, you are Philly, like all Philly stuff.
Sports culture. Meanwhile, for colleges, this left little room for any competition. Sure, Rutgers and Syracuse have notable programs. The annual Army-Navy game is one to mark of the calendar, and
I've already made my comments about the Army-Navy game. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna say too much else, but yeah, they got to put that like week 4 or 5 or something like that, even week 0. But yeah, like it don't need its own weekend.
Depending on if you lump them into the region, Penn State has quite a strong
Penn State is not in the region, not even close.
But for the most part,
like the East Coast. Y'all gotta let me know. I feel like Pittsburgh is like the Midwest. I feel like Penn State is low-key more Pittsburgh than it is Philly. This is not like in this same region though. Not at all.
Professional teams took over in this region.
Because in Bama, there's not really no
this has
professional
the opposite
team
effect in
for
parts
real.
of the country that are dominated by college sports. Some of the biggest football programs in the country have been able to develop into such a powerhouse because the metro areas weren't big enough to attract a major professional franchise of their own. Or alternatively, these college programs established themselves long before there was any potential for a pro franchise to arrive. So sports leagues wouldn't even attempt to get involved in cities that were already obsessed with their local school's athletics program.
Makes sense.
But hold on. It's not like college sports are a forgotten entity altogether in these states. After all, the Frozen Four routinely features teams from Massachusetts, while Villanova, Syracuse, and UConn are March Madness staples. Knowing that though, this wide range of sporting success plays a major part in what's going against college football. Simply put, there's far too many sports to choose from. In a region littered with cities that experience all 4 seasons, shaped by locals, transplants, and immigrants from various cultures, loyalties often skew toward media-dominant professional teams or hometown favorites. This dilutes the cultural pull of any one single team, let alone college football. People certainly care about that level of gridiron, but it doesn't take over on Saturdays in the same way that you would find in other places that know how to pull off a good tailgate. I could be wrong about that though, so if you're from the Northeast, leave a comment below indicating which team you support.
I think the other thing too is, since there aren't as many schools, like you have Rutgers, you have Maryland, you have, I'm not even going to include this, so you have Rutgers, you have Maryland, who else you have? You have Boston College, Syracuse, even though Syracuse is like way, way up in the middle of nowhere. But it's just not that many teams to the point where you have people really like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like, people aren't really picking a team, I guess, because there just aren't that many schools. Like, you went to the school, but also those teams haven't really been successful. Know what it is. The teams just haven't been super successful. I think it's hard to really build a fan base, build like excitement, build energy, build momentum with your program if you're not really having success.
Professional or at a college level. Anyways, the city lifestyle that millions here are exposed to certainly doesn't help either. Saturdays are often seen as a time for social gatherings or enjoying the vibrant city lifestyle. All of this
That is facts, because I've been to Tuscaloosa. I've been to Happy Valley. Ain't shit to do in those places. Like absolutely nothing. Even Madison, Wisconsin, like Bloomington, Indiana. Not really much to do. So I feel like when you have more stuff to do, it's like, yeah, like we can go here, we can go to a college football game, we can go out to eat, we can go to a whatever, go to a pro game. And let's say Nebraska, it's like, yo, we're going to Nebraska football. That's it. Ain't shit else to do in that state.
This is prioritized instead of dedicating the entire day to football. In Texas, you'll see towns come together even for high school football on Friday evenings. But in these states up here, it's only NFL Sundays that have the ability to lure people to the couch or the stadium.
Y'all know we got the Friday Night Lights series. I've seen some jumping high school games for sure. People be showing up for high school football in Jersey.
Could any of this change? Will there ever be a day that we see a shift in the Northeast sporting culture? If we're being honest, the odds are slim. One of the biggest hurdles lies in the high school pipeline. For football to thrive in college, it needs a steady stream of local talent to build.
That's kind of what that's one of the things I was hitting at or trying to get at before. I think I was trying to say that, where it's just not a ton of schools for you to kind of go to in this area. Like if you're in Jersey, right, your lower offers are going to be Temple, UMass, UConn, and then, you have like the P5 schools like, what's it? We have Boston College, Syracuse, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers. It's just not as like expansive as in other states.
Build competitive programs.
Like I've even seen it. Like, guys, their first couple offers, like they get 2 offers around here, and it's like, oh, we kind of got all the offers. Now it's like, all right, if you're gonna kind of progress from there, you're gonna be more of a national recruit, and at that point, you're probably going somewhere else.
He struggles with. While states like Texas, Florida, and Georgia churn out top prospects year after year, high school football in the Northeast hasn't kept pace.
I feel like Jersey's carrying that. It might be Pennsylvania too. Okay, and it might be more Pennsylvania, but. Per capita, Jersey's definitely up there.
There aren't nearly as many top recruits coming from the area, and the best players from the region often leave for powerhouse programs in the Midwest or the South, where they're more likely to gain national exposure and develop under systems built to funnel players into the NFL. This talent drain creates a vicious cycle. Without a strong local talent pool, Northeast college programs struggle to compete on the national stage.
I think it also, too, something I've noticed a ton, especially since I've gotten more involved with like high school football players, is there are a lot of elite athletes in Jersey whose first offers aren't from Rutgers. Like it's actually mind blowing. Where like my quarterback in high school, Tommy DeVito, ended up being a 4-star. Rutgers was not his first offer. Like right in their backyard, struggling at quarterback. They ain't offer him until like I think it's like 5th or 6th offer. So I think Rutgers has to do a much better job of actually offering guys early on in the process, being the first one to offer, especially because if you don't have that kind of relationship with them early on, you're not really going to stand out once they start getting the bigger offers and things like that. So I think, their talent identification needs to be a little bit better, in my opinion.
And without successful programs to rally around, young athletes in the region are less likely to see football as a viable path. In contrast, other sports like basketball and soccer can.
Basketball, though? Basketball, this might be the best state. Might be definitely a top, 3 state. A lot of other places, too, like their basketball programs that carry the state aren't even, real schools, bro. They, just started up, 3 years ago. Jersey, hey, tough schools, and they be real schools.
Continue to grow in popularity. This will only divide attention and resources even further. Lastly, the growing awareness around player safety is also important to note, as concerns about concussions and long-term health risks have led to declining participation in youth football across the country. This trend is especially pronounced in urban and suburban areas that you see dominating the region. Parents are becoming skeptical of the sport's violent nature and are more likely to steer their children towards safer athletic alternatives. Given these challenges, it's hard to imagine.
What's funny is I think soccer has more concussions than football or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but y'all can check that in the comments. But football, I don't know. I feel like it's overblown a tad bit.
Imagine a seismic shift in the region's relationship with college football. The history, the culture, the professional sports dominance, the lack of local talent, and now the health concerns, these factors create a perfect storm that limits college football's potential for growth. Now, obviously, there will always be a demand for college football. People will still root for their alma mater.
And see, I think Penn State's far enough removed to where it doesn't really affect them. But I think the biggest thing with this is just the fact that there aren't pro teams competing with college teams in other states. Kind of the Midwest, there aren't a ton of football programs that have to deal with NFL and stuff like that. And here we have the Jets, the Giants, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Eagles, low-key the Bills. It's just a lot of pro teams that kind of are competing for the same eyeballs.
Now, obviously, there will always
not
be
necessarily the same eyeballs, but same passion, I guess you would say.
Football. People will still root for their alma mater, and even more will continue to love everything the Power 4 conferences have to offer. But in this neck of the woods, there's far too much going on for all eyes to be fixated on one specific level of football. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the big picture of sports, then I highly recommend subscribing to this channel and signing up to my newsletter, Sport Vista. Every Sunday, you'll receive an email with the 3 biggest stories of the week that involve sports stadiums and much more, so you can stay up to date with the big picture stories that might fly under the radar. As always, if you enjoyed this...
All right, well, that was a good video. Definitely makes you think. Very insightful. Yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think about it down in the comments. But yeah, I'm gonna catch y'all next time. Peace.